Hello, thanks for attending during the break. So I'm Jamie Chapman and I've been an engineer for around 8 years. I'm currently an engineering manager at Vonage. This is my first talk at a conference, so no heckling or anything like that. If anyone could refrain, it'd be great. So I got into management as I really enjoyed helping people to progress and building an environment where they can succeed. And this has led me invariably to read a few books. One of these books is called Drive by Daniel H. Pink, and it's going to be the kind of subject of the talk. I've read this book a few times, and I really believe in the findings and solutions it offers to the point that I try and implement these with and outside the team. In this talk, I'll aim to convey the findings within this book. There will be 4 sections covering a brief history of motivation, why is the second drive declining, the 2 types of work, and what does actually work. So here I'll explain about the 3 drives. So the first drive, this is the biological drive in that we drink to quench our thirst and we eat to prevent hunger. We are motivated because of our biological makeup. Quite simple. The second drive, also quite simple. This is how the environment rewards or punishes us for behaving in certain ways. As we know, humans respond very well to such external forces in that if you offer us more money, we'll work harder. If you say you're going to dock our pay, if we're late, then we'll arrive on time. So it's how the environment rewards your behaviour. The third drive, so the interesting one. This came from a theory first presented around 1949 by Harry F. Harlow, as a professor of psychology at the University of Wisconsin. The theory goes that performing the task is the drive. So doing the task provided intrinsic rewards. So people did tasks just because it was just simply gratifying to do so. Harlow was first to discover the drive, but it was further proved by numerous experiments performed by this long list of very smart people. I've got some links at the bottom as well if you wanted to do some research. So there are a lot of experiments in the book, and they are fascinating to read about, but they all come to the same conclusion, that being when there are 2 groups of people, say A and B, doing a creative task like solving a puzzle, both groups can be observed as enjoying the task even when there are alternative activities for them, like reading a magazine or something like this. They still stay very focused on the task as they're enjoying it. But when an extrinsic reward like money is introduced to, say, Group B, you will see Group B's performance completely deteriorate in that they spend significantly less time on the puzzle and take considerably longer to solve it. So as we just looked at with the second drive, this is kind of the bedrock of motivation. This is the complete opposite to what we thought we knew in terms of how the second drive operated. We always believed that if we introduced an extrinsic reward like money, we'd always get better performance. And what we saw with these experiments was actually the complete opposite. Now, I guess you might be thinking, how has this been broke for so long? But the fact is, it hasn't. The second drive has been at many places of work, and still to this day, under the right circumstances, is still very good at motivating people. But to understand the circumstances that it does work under, you need to understand the 2 types of work. So you've got the first type, algorithmic. This is where there is a clearly defined path for completing the task. An example of this could be a supermarket till clerk. They take an item off the conveyor belt, they scan it, they pass it to the customer. There is a clear set of predefined steps that must be followed in order to complete the task. There's an algorithm. The second type is heuristic. This is where the road to completing the task isn't clear. Maybe it's never been done before in that an algorithm doesn't exist, so you'll need to come up with something new. A good example might be an advertisement campaign for a new company. No one has done an advertisement campaign for this company before, so the path is unknown even when the goal is clear. So just to recap, 2 very different types of work. Heuristic, by its very nature, you have to be creative, you have to have freedom, and so any type of extrinsic reward will only serve as a distraction, reduce engagement, and ultimately turn play into work, as was demonstrated in the previous slide. They found that by introducing extrinsic rewards, the participant lost a sense of autonomy over the task, in that they felt they weren't in control any longer and it turned into a chore. Has my mic gone off, I think? Still good? Okay, just sounds a lot better from my point of view. Okay. And then we go on to algorithmic. Is needing you to follow a predefined path which lends itself very well to the second drive, as the work requires very little independent or creative thinking, meaning extrinsic rewards can improve performance. So this is where the second drive works with algorithmic work. So this brings us on to another point in the talk. Why is the second drive declining? The book has a great example, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. But if you spoke to an economist back in 1995 and you pitched two versions of an online encyclopedia, the first will be Microsoft Encarta. There'll be a huge team of well-paid professional writers and editors building and maintaining whilst being overseen by managers to ensure it's delivered on time and budget. The second group will be a set of global volunteers who write and edit articles for fun in their spare time. As we know, Microsoft pulled the plug on Encarta in 2009, and Wikipedia has become the most successful online encyclopedia in the world. Again, with the second drive, traditional motivation had a hard time explaining this. As we know, it's not a blip. There are many examples of successful open source products, some of the best coming from Linux and Apache. Ultimately, it comes down to a shift in the type of work. Basic algorithmic work has been automated by heuristic work, and complex algorithmic work has moved offshore. But even this complex algorithmic work is also starting to be replaced by heuristic work, meaning you're seeing a decline in algorithmic and a rise in heuristic. Hence, the second drive just is not really relevant a lot in the modern world. The book cites three main reasons for this. So it goes into how we organize what we do. So the open source success, again, doesn't fit with the second drive at all. A group of volunteers can self-organize to solve a complex problem with no extrinsic rewards. This simply isn't compatible with the second drive. They shouldn't be motivated, but they are. As people shouldn't be able to organize and complete work when motivated by extrinsic rewards. But the majority of modern workforces are self-organizing as is needed around heuristic tasks. The second is how we think about what we do. Again, the second drive assumes we're all wealth maximizers. We are purely rational thinkers, but we aren't. Put simply, we don't make all our decisions based on money. It's in fact quite the opposite. We make completely irrational decisions all the time. In terms of the second drive, me presenting here is completely irrational. I spent hours preparing in my spare time. I've been very nervous the entire time, still nervous now, and all for no money. It's the same with retirement. It's very rational to save, but it's very rational to save for us as it definitely happens, but we very rarely do. But me doing this talk is very intrinsically satisfying, believe it or not, as I enjoy sharing knowledge and trying to master new things like presenting. I've not thought about this from a wealth maximizing perspective, and again, we can go back to the open source. People are contributing because they enjoy developing their skills and learning new things. But that's not to say all open source volunteers have taken a vow of poverty. Partition in these projects can improve your reputation and sharpen your skills, which can in turn enhance your earning power. The third part. So the second drive relies a lot on people being motivated in order to reward good and punish bad behavior for routine tasks. So it makes perfect sense for them to be monitored. But for creative tasks, there's no monitoring needed. You set the goal. How you get there is really left down to the person to be self-directed. So on to the final part of the talk. What does work? So we've taken a look at why the second drive doesn't fit many of today's modern workplaces. Now we'll explore what does work, and this again breaks down into three categories. Autonomy. So this is described as the urge to be self-directed. That's not to say people want to go it alone, but more to have the choice and be interdependent on people rather than independent of them. Further findings came from a cluster of behavioral scientific studies. They concluded that autonomous motivation promotes greater conceptual understanding, higher productivity, less burnout, and greater levels of psychological well-being. But this isn't just beneficial to the employee. Employers who enable autonomy in their companies can expect to see significantly higher growth than companies that have a top-down direction approach. They also had 1/3 the turnover rate of the companies with the top-down approach. So again, there's some further reading around this. So it gives you, so when we talk about autonomy over the task, we have seen this with many companies, but you could say Google's case always springs to mind. They give employees 20% of their time to work on a side project. I'm sure many of us have heard about this, but it gives them complete autonomy over the task. They can choose any tasks they want to work on. Many great projects like Gmail and Translate have come out of this 20% time. Out of the 20% time. So autonomy over your time. A great example of this is actually at Best Buy, where they implemented a row, otherwise known as a results-only work environment, where the results are measured and not the time you put in to achieve them. This removes time from the equation entirely, and surprisingly, families are the most staunchest advocates for this way of working. So autonomy over technique. Another great example of this is Zappos. With many call centers, it's already tough. People are not phoning up to tell you they're having a great day or that you're doing a great job. It's usually to have a problem, have a moan, and they expect you to solve it. Calls are usually monitored by a supervisor, performance targets are set, and a script is read, so very little room to apply your own technique. It's no surprise that call centers have a high turnover of staff. In some call centers, it can be as high as 100%, meaning the same people here now will not be here a year from then. What Zappos did was remove monitoring of calls and allow reps, the most important point, to solve the customer's problem on their own terms. So no script. So they gave them power over their technique. And the last point is autonomy over the team. So this one comes from farm foods. So when a department needs a new employee, it's not the department's head that does the hiring of the employee. A prospective employee will perform a 30-day trial period, and then whether they join the company or not is decided by the people within that team. It's a big difference, a big shift. The third section, mastery. So these are all part of how you can achieve that third drive. So the mastery, the desire to get better and better at something that matters. So control leads to compliance, autonomy leads to engagement, and where there's engagement, there can be mastery. So you cannot have mastery without engagement. You cannot have engagement without autonomy. One of the problems at many workplaces is the mismatch on tasks. So if what you must do exceeds what you can do, you're usually going to get a result of feeling quite anxious. If what you do or if what you must do falls short of your capabilities, then you're probably going to have boredom. So you just need to find this nice spot it's just in between, where sometimes in the right circumstances you can find flow. So flow can be in a moment, mastery can take years. So they're quite different, but flow is essential to achieving mastery. You need the right mindset for mastery as well. So it really depends on which one you have. If you believe intelligence is a fixed quantity, then you are seeing every professional encounter as a measure of how much you know. But if you believe intelligence isn't fixed, then you'll see the same encounter as an opportunity to grow and develop. The second mindset leads to mastery. Another good example here is getting a distinction in a French exam. This is a performance goal. Speaking French is a learning goal. Speaking French is going to lead to mastery, not achieving an A in the exam. Mastery is a pain. You'll hear a lot of, you can describe mastery in one term. You need grit. So grit is defined as the perseverance and passion of achieving long-term goals. Let's be honest, we all knew that mastering any activity takes a considerable amount of time or grit. As Daniel mentions in the book, the path to mastery isn't lined with daisies and spanned by a rainbow. It's difficult. It takes a lot of perseverance. There's no silver lining. The simple truth with mastery is you'll spend long hours with periods of flow that will result in very, very small improvements that allow you to then move to the next level or plateau. Then you put enough, and but if you put the effort in, enough because you value the goal so highly. So this is the reason you'll do it. And then mastery as an asymptote. So an asymptote is a line and a curve that a curve approaches as it heads towards infinity. So basically, you're never ever going to completely master a task. There's always room for improvement. And the last section, because time is up, is purpose, the desire to do something that has meaning and is important. Businesses that only focus on profits without valuing purpose will end up with poor customer service and unhappy employees. Purpose provides the context for autonomy and mastery. So you can't have autonomy and mastery without some sort of context, and this is the purpose. So setting purposeful goals. There is a new generation of people joining the workforce that aren't focused on money. They are more concerned with non-monetary factors like, is the team good? Do I have the ability to give back to society? In short, it's not all about money anymore. Purposeful work. This has resulted in more companies forming that are purpose maximizers as opposed to profit maximizers. The goal of these new companies is to pursue purpose and to use profit as a catalyst rather than the objective. Words. Words matter. The words you decide to attach to a goal mean a lot. Even an exciting goal can be drowned out and made to look mundane by a poor choice of words. And then there's policies. Between the words and the goals sit policies. You might have a very high ethical standard, but as soon as you introduce a policy for ethics, people just wanted to check boxes. You're going to probably see people try and hit the minimum requirements for this, and you're going to see a drop-off in ethical behaviour. So policies can be great, should always look to enhance with an employee's well-being being the centric part. So in closing, we've explored 3 drives, understand why the second drive no longer fits into the modern workplace, and how we can enhance the third drive with autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Hopefully I've managed to entice some of you to read this book, as I can't possibly fit it in for 15 minutes. We don't have any time left, so I can't take any questions, but I'm volunteering at the conference because I like to volunteer and help people out. So you'll see me floating around. So if you have any questions, please come and find me. Thank you.